Who's around right now, baby, right now? Do an improv, baby, right now, now, now. Who's around right now, baby, right now? Do an improv, baby, right now, 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 now.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Bowler.
Hi, LG.
I missed you.
Missed you too. It's been so long. Happy
We haven't
hiatus.
interacted once in real life. We only exist to each other in the digital space.
I wish that wasn't true.
No, that's not true. I've seen you.
Oh yeah, sure.
We've almost hung out a couple of times, barring sickness.
Yeah. So take that, world. Welcome everybody to Who's Around. And I know if you're thinking you're looking at our little graphic there, you're like, wait, is it Thursday at 1? No, it's Friday at noon. You're joining us for a nooner.
I'm sorry, that really sounded harsh. I need like a soundboard, but that should not be on it.
No, but that did sound good for our morning DJ sound though, so keep that sound at some point.
No, nooner. Wolfman Jack. What's the saddest?
DJ Bowler in the LG. Sorry, that's just corn.
Oh, that's that. We like corn. That's not it. It's the Hiatus show, and this is a poem that we wrote together. Hiatus, I hate us for comedy. I ate husks of corn. That's Trevor!
Yay!
Trevor, how's the piano playing coming? I broke myself out of Facebook jail today, which means I've been eligible to do so, and I just have gotten used to living without it. So I don't know how people are doing.
You know, I saw Trevor's update about playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow to being a tricky song, and I think Judy would agree. So, Trevor, you and Miss Garland.
That Bowler's one of Bowler's favorite movies is what does Somewhere Over the Rainbow come from, Bowler? Oh my gosh. What does that come from?
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. I wish I could say that was a bit that I forgot it. Eric Germ. We love Eric Germ. Eric Germ. Neither of those people are Eric Germ, but Eric Germ knows those people, and that makes me very happy.
I was like, I don't even know these people. All right, great.
Well, we're today talking about coming back from hiatus. This is the Hiatus show, and we're very happy.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Was it the horseman that's the stock photo? I could see the watermark on something, and I'm just wondering.
I don't know how to remove all those things. I don't know.
No.
Oh, Trevor, I remember when you started and you were like getting nervous for your recital, and now you're playing songs from, what was that movie?
Wizard of Oz.
Thank you.
One of my special interests as a kid, actually.
We were just talking about, not sponsored, but
oh wait,
I was given a book for Christmas.
Yeah, I bought this. I actually listened to it via the library first, and then I bought copies for 3 of my most loved ones for no reason. For no reason whatsoever.
It's sports. You can mask a lot of behaviors through sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, not for either of us. Just because does.
Getty Images. I noticed that. That was good. You use the best, highest quality stock images when you are doing that. And I respect the watermark because you know what? It shows. It's like you could tell it's a high quality image. If it's got a watermark, they don't just watermark anything.
When you buy and purchase things for legal use, they give you the watermark for free. Did you know that? That's the sign that you're allowed to use it for anything you want.
Nice. That's really, really nice. That's really nice. Yeah, I think I agree. It's always funny. It's always funny. And what are we then more than a comedy show? More than anything else, we're a comedy show. So in addition to both of us self-diagnosing ourselves with autism and me diagnosing half of my friend group, because autisms don't have a lot of friends, so honestly that's a good portion of it. Which also explains I was like, oh, that's why I always struggled with friendships over the years. Yeah, it makes some more sense. But Hiatus show is not about our autism show. That is a separate discussion. If anyone wants to talk about their autism, I'm happy to talk to you about it because this is a new thing for me and it's very exciting to figure out. Yeah,
fun for gender reasons as well for me.
Fun.
But anyway, hiatus. Hiatus rhymes with a lot of stuff. Did you ever know that?
No. What does it rhyme with?
It rhymes with
I hate us and I hate us.
I actually wrote a poem for us being back, and I wanted to know if I put it up on screen, if you wouldn't mind maybe reading it.
I would love to read it. I love reading poems.
Bowler has never read this, and I did not finish it, so it ends kind of abruptly.
Okay.
Hiatus.
All right. Hiatus. Forgive us our lateness on return from hiatus. Most disadvantages was our oft contagious stasis. The great weight created in our depressed minds of grayness caused us to experience symptoms most vexatious and heinous, not least of which featured a full-blown out anus. We wouldn't talk about that if you paid us. Alas, when no more our brains had betrayed us, at least not so much as to be ostentatious, inspiration had hit an idea for the ages, and without baseless straightness or rages, we put on a show, and not too precipitacious, perhaps just a tad phallically flirtatious, a show at times aimless but always quite gracious and never so baselessly shameless for status anus. That's most beautiful. Okay, and good to know there are words that I don't know in that poem. Wow,
this is the draft. Look at all those words that rhyme with stasis.
Honestly, the fact that Amadeus wasn't in there is my most disappointing part. But it was
on the list. It was on the list. I couldn't make it work.
Amadeus. That was
Trevor,
really
I'm using this out of context, but I feel like it's appropriate.
No, but we could tell Trevor would be clapping right now. We could tell.
You did wonderfully with that. That was beyond my wildest dreams.
It is. I have also recently discovered. I have a little reading disability. I just thought everybody read like I read in their minds. Like if you don't recognize a word, that you just can't read it in your brain, and it just switches to another word, and that you just sub that in your brain. And that's not a thing that everyone does. Or like when you're reading, sometimes letters switch around and then they're not in the right order that there's in the word. What
is that? Is that a thing? Is that
I don't know. But I'm finding these things out about myself. So back to the unmasked and the gender thing. It's so interesting, the gender stuff in this, and how uncomfortable gender is, and how it doesn't make sense often for people with autism. And since reading this book, I've gotten to more conversations about this and being like, oh, it's blah blah blah, and someone would be like, no, not everyone feels that way, and you're like, really? This was interesting. I said this. I was actually looking at a picture of myself that Bagley had posted online. It was for my birthday. I was in the Bijou outfit, and Bagley I was like,
Bowler's husband, and Bijou is Bowler's clown
character. Yes,
clown Sona.
And thank you for defining that. Yeah, because I didn't even realize. Yeah, so yes, so I saw this picture and I was looking at it. I was like, oh, so funny. I was like, I forget that I have tits sometimes. And he's like, what? I was like, do you ever just forget you have a body? Like, I just forget I have them. And I see myself in a picture with them. I'm like, oh, whoa, jeepers, I forget that they're there. And he was like, no, I don't know that everybody thinks that way. I was like, really? And asked me the day, I was like, do you ever just like imagine yourself with like different genitalia? Like, I'm like, I can honestly imagine myself with a penis. Like, I can like kind of sound almost like feel it. And he's like, I don't think everyone does that. And I was like, oh, huh. So that's been interesting. Huh.
The idea that the spectrum of life available to us now, and words, and using words that we didn't know that we had access to, but the absence, their absence has always been felt, even if they're for, like, you know, can always have felt it within yourself.
Right.
Hey, I lost the thread on that. I lost the
always funny. Always funny. Always funny. But yeah, that's been an interesting little discovery.
That's been an interesting thing. Have you found yourself consuming reading material differently since noticing that that's something that you sort of struggle with?
Reading wise? Oh, I guess I'm just more aware that not everyone struggles with this. Like, if there's too many words on a page, I can't read it. Like, my brain is like, nope, shuts off, and I was like, I didn't realize that wasn't a thing for everyone. I was like, oh, everybody must get overwhelmed if there's too many words near each other, and then you just can't read it all. And
I appreciate you reading this block of text for me. I did ask before the show if you were okay reading it, and said that there was not going to be any stethoscopes in there. Stethoscope, a word famously Bowler
or Mitsubishi,
or say stethoscope. Say stethoscope.
Stethoscope I've gotten better with. Stethoscope I've gotten better with. Yeah, because it's the in the middle, which someone pointed out to me. It's like there's a the in the middle. So like, oh, stethoscope. But that car manufacturer, I still can't.
See, stethoscope, I think you've gotten great at, because we're both highly qualified, trained medical actors.
Basically a doctor.
Basically.
Yeah, it is a little. Yeah, I do feel like sometimes I am my friend's both medical friend. I'm like my friend's doctor friend, and now my friend's psychiatrist friends. But I'm like, this is dangerous. You all need real help.
Yeah. I'm so happy to not. Every time I see somebody talk about being a therapist, I'm like, bye.
Bye. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do love talking about this stuff, and I love talking to my friends about stuff and connecting with that stuff. But it is like, you're always going to end this conversation with like, what?
We have both gotten better at separating those roles and establishing boundaries for the good of our friends and ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is very different than being like, I'm so excited to be your therapist friend.
Yeah.
Just like a role that sometimes you take to try to make more friends as a kid, which is something that everybody does, which is really normal.
Not at all in a chapter in here. Yeah, no. Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I love finding out about myself, and actually related to finding out about myself, I've been doing a lot of genealogical research recently, because
French Canadian Friendship Day.
Yeah, happy French Canadian Friendship Day. So it's funny, I actually took one of those DNA tests where they come back and they're like, here is your results, here is your ethnicity. And I got results that I was not expecting. And because it said I was almost 100% Irish, and
I don't know how this works.
Less than 0.5% French, which was very strange to me, because I have so much like, my mom grew up speaking French. Like, there's a lot of like French Canadian culture in my house, like both sides descended from immigrated from Canada.
Bon, good. She's
good
speaking
bon?
French. Yeah, she's saying bon, B-O-N, good French.
Are you talking about the baby was saying that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that at all. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, but it's interesting. So I was like, I should be more French than 0.5%. So that's what started into my genealogy, to try to figure out like, where in the world, when did the Irish travel to France to come over to here? Because everything in like immigration records points to
records.
My
mom has to talk to you about that. She goes to there's like a French Canadian genealogical museum, and like the librarians help her out. And
Yeah,
she's
at
trying to put
the
stuff on my
Woonsocket Museum of Work
dad's
and
side.
Culture. What's that?
Yes. Well, my dad's records got my dad's side of the family's records got, some of them were, I don't know if you'll believe this. Nazis have been around for a long time. I know that they're like a modern thing.
What's this?
But Nazis destroyed much of my dad's family records.
Huh, that's a weird thing to do to a Jewish family.
I didn't.
Is that new? Is that new that Nazis dislike Jewish people? That's a thing. Huh.
It's I'm
hearing of it.
It's the first I'm hearing of it.
But then let me just emphasize, just in case anyone ever sees this out of context, please know that these are jokes. These are sarcastic jokes. Everyone, just because that was not okay.
I have gotten. Raise your hand if you have gotten more vitriol thrown at you for your quote unquote having a Jewish last name since in the last 6 months.
I don't have.
And I love my last name.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it on stream, but I love my last name. It's so great. Much so that my name is LG.
Yeah, it's great. But it's no, I'm not surprised that the records were, a lot of records destroyed. And
so
if you're
just joining us, Nazis destroyed a lot of records and wiped out huge portions of not just my family, but like took away a lot of beautiful things and people from the earth. And we don't like that. Can I say officially that we don't like? Are you okay with saying we don't like?
Yeah. No, I feel like that's fine.
Yeah. But my mom, story short, would love to chat with you about how to get that side of the family, get more like the tips and tricks of like how to get stuff when, like which library to go to when some stuff is written record and some stuff isn't, and what she's become like an amateur detective. So you guys need to like get together.
I would love to, because it's now my new special interest. It helps give me a lot of happy chemicals in my body when I do find the thing. It's so fun to like you're like looking for a person, searching on his records, can't find it, and then you finally see their name in print or handwritten on some document, and you're like, oh, this person did exist, and it's really gratifying when you do find it. And it is.
Have you found? What's the biggest find that you can talk about on camera?
Oh, I would say this is okay. Trigger warning about this, because I'm going to talk about some things that might be upsetting. But the biggest thing I found is actually the amount of children that had died young in my family, and babies and stillborns, and like 1-year-olds, an 8-year-old, and the record keeping around children's death is not great. Often because the parents are so distraught that they're not doing that sort of record keeping that parents, like the next of kin would be doing. Like, I think when you're a child and your parent dies, it's a little bit easier to handle the record keeping, what has to go for it, than when you're a parent and your child dies. Right. So it's very hard. And then also because my family for generations lived in such poverty, that also wipes out a lot of records. The only thing that's been helpful is that most of my family, for again generations, have been Catholic. So a lot of
baptism, first communion,
exactly, baptisms. So you had to have certain things. Though again, on the flip side of that is that because they're Catholic, there'll be a family of so my great grandmother, for example, she was one of 7 Marys in her family. All first name Mary, different middle names, but because they're Catholic, they're like, let's just name them all Mary, or
Mary Elizabeth, Mary Agnes, Mary,
right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, Mary, the English version, but Marie or Maria, like depending on the culture. But yeah, so she was one of 7 Maries in her family.
Ave, 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 ave.
Exactly. Yeah, and so it makes it a little difficult because you're like, is it this Marie or is it that Marie? And census was taken by hand and like written by hand, so even just reading people's penmanship, so spellings of last names have been changed and flipped. Some last names weren't changed officially on any kind of like documents, besides like one day someone just started using a different last name and never told anybody. And
I think that's how some of the My dad's family is, I think, Polish and Austrian. And I think that that's how some of the Polish names got changed, because there's like little, I don't read Polish. So the accent marks, there's a few in Polish that don't look familiar to me in other, it's like, it must be like a Slavic language derivative, because I don't recognize it. And I think they got dropped. I don't know, classic story, Ellis Island. What's your name? I don't care. It sounds like blah, blah, blah.
So many of them, I'll see them, they get dropped on the census, because the census taker would say, what's your last name? What's your name? And they would say it with their heavy accent, either Irish or French accent, depending on which culture we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
of course, those people,
well, I'm going to do the best I can writing that.
Right. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter enough to get their name correctly.
They spell it completely wrong. And the other thing too with this, so I also, here's a really funny story that happened. This is just actually last night that happened. Come here.
I'm so excited. I haven't seen this baby who's not a baby. She's a child now in such a long time. So every time she comes on screen, even if she's a little grumpy, I'm just gonna.
And now she's a little bit shy, right? She's feeling a little shy right now. I feel like she can tell we're live. Like pre-show before we were live, she was like way more like just talking about hats and wearing hats.
I watched some. I'm sorry to compare your child to a cat, but I watched some video game streamers whose cats only take the stinkiest shits when they're on stream. They poop in the litter box all day, but only when they're live.
Only.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
This is beautiful stuff that you're going to pass on to the next generation of.
Okay, so this story, right? Last night, I've been doing a lot of this genealogical research, and it's been very fascinating. And I can, if anyone's interested, I'll let you know what I use. I do not pay for any services, because I think a lot of those services to pay for finding the genealogical stuff is a ripoff. You can actually find the stuff online yourself. Anyways, I'm happy to talk about it later. But last night, my mom sends me this text, and it's like, this I got from your Aunt Rose, who subscribes to Ancestry.com, which is a fucking scam. But anyways, that's like a $15 a month thing. And then they own multiple restaurants that you have to also pay for those websites too.
Mommy?
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, yeah, you got to get like all your research done in a short window.
Yeah, and it's like, I think Ancestry would be worth it if you were like, had to meet a deadline to create your family tree or something. Might be worth the $15 to pay to like get it all together, because they are faster than old methods. But anyways,
the old method being journeying to Ellis Island and getting the literally going or wherever your local the Museum of Work and Culture is really great. Like, is that the one that you mentioned?
The Woonsocket Museum. Yeah, if you're French Canadian, the Woonsocket Museum work. If you're not French Canadian, that museum is useless to you. Just for the record for everybody, like, you're not gonna get anything out of that museum if you're not French Canadian.
People watching in now, live, and in perpetuity, it's gonna be useless.
So anyway, so the story last night, my mom sends me this text, and it's a screenshot that my Aunt Rose had sent her, and saying, look at this woman we're related to. She's like, my mom in the text said like a great grandmother, but I could tell it was older than that, right? And she's like, look, this woman we're related to. Here's her name. Here's this, photograph of her. And apparently we have Indigenous blood in us, Canadian Indigenous, which makes a lot of sense. The French immigrated over.
Do you know what First Nation, what nation it is?
Yeah, Micmac. I might not be pronouncing that right, but they're originated from Nova Scotia. So, and it was really cool. It was like this woman, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then, like, apparently she lived in 1624, and here's her name. And it's like, I was like, oh wow, I was like, I'm gonna have to look up that name. That's so cool. Like, I can't, that's and she's like, yeah, this is what Ancestry found. And I was like, wow, that's so neat. And then, showing my husband Bagley, he's like, look at this. And he's like, oh yeah, actually, he's like, he's looking at her, and he's like, you can actually see some of the, like, the features, like the eye shape and the nose shape. And you're like, wow, that's so weird. Like, so my family's heads have like a fairly distinctive look to them, that I'm finding these old pictures and I'm actually like looking like these people, which is like really cool, right? And then he was like, wait a second, 1624, photography wasn't invented yet. How do they have a picture of her? And I was like, huh. So we did a little I was like, well, maybe this is like a tintype, maybe it's like before photography or whatever. So we're looking at like, no, first pictures ever were like 1854 or something, or 50, like it was like not in the 1600s, absolutely in the 1800s, not even close, right? So I texted my mom, I was like, wait a second, I was like, how does the picture exist? You know, the photographers invented this. She's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're right. And she's like, that's so weird. And so she showed me the screenshots from Ancestry. Like, here's what it is. She's like, do you see it's on their webpage? And I was like, that's so weird. So I was like, well, let me do my own research. So I look up first the name. I find out, yes, in fact, we are related to this woman. But what I find out is that none of the information about the woman is correct on Ancestry.com. So the name is correct. We are related to that person's name, right?
It's like the white pages, the yellow page, the online like reverse lookup.
Well, so that's what I did. So I looked up the image to be like, where's this image coming from? So that image is of a woman who lived 200 years later than this woman. Not at all that woman. So like that's not even. And I was like, okay, so that's not that one. And I found it. It's actually just like almost not a stock photo because it was a real person, but it's like a photo used to promote like Indigenous Heritage Research Foundation. And I was like, oh, that's not even. This is like they just stole this image and are assigning it to this woman's name. And the reason why
that woman's family probably has no idea, maybe has no idea that this person's image is being
I'm thinking probably not, right? So I was like telling my mom, I was like, that's not even that woman. This is that. I was like, I found that one. I found the images, like that woman's name. I found her name, and I'm like, here's this woman's name. Here's who she is. I was like, we might be related to her, but I don't know about this woman. Like, this is not. But I did find the person's name. So whose name was Edme. EDMEE. And Edme we are related to. Absolutely confirmed are related to Edme. There's like there's good records up until then.
I mean 1600s, maybe there's a portrait.
Well, I don't know. No. Well, so here's the controversy, right? The reason why we can find this woman Edme so easily is because basically all French Canadians are related to Edme. The reason for that is that when France was colonizing, France sent some French noblemen over to Nova Scotia to, I don't know how else to put this more gently, but to breed with Indigenous women.
Oh my God.
A community of what the documents, this is what the documents say. I feel weird saying this language on air, but the documents say to create a community of métis, which is mixed breed of French and Indigenous, though they use the word savageux, which is savages. And so you have this community that grew, and that's basically, if you are French Canadian, you likely descended from this original settlers in Nova Scotia that were the French
colonizers, which has been a theme on the show in the past about how much we don't want.
Yeah,
and being related to them in the past is a thing. Yeah, look at these eyeballs. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also, so then I'm just deep diving, right? So then I found another website that's talking about this project, this like the colony project, if you would, which was like, you know, given a very awesome name, you know, like Manifest Destiny, you know, like
let's put the most PR sounding name over.
It was like, yes, right, because like and this article's talking about like, you know, preserving our heritage and blah blah blah, like completely negating the fact that they are erasing the Indigenous cultures. But I do have my 10th great grandmother was in fact Indigenous, because my 10th great grandfather had babies with his Indigenous maid. So there it is.
So I was like, how do you? Yeah. Lots of complicated feelings and having. I wish that I could be eloquent about that. You had some time to digest that information.
Yeah. So it's been, and like, I'm not surprised, right? Because I'm very white.
It's just like, got it.
I gotta go. Yeah, no. Yeah. No, and I'm not surprised, right? Because as a white person, every single white person, we've all descended from colonizers. Like, you know, it's just what it is. It's truth. You know, you can also, and because we descended from colonizers, you always suspect that there's probably some Indigenous blood in your DNA because colonizers are very rapey. So you're like, okay, there's a good chance that also happened. Like, you know, so these things that I wasn't shocked to find out that I'm like one, like 512th percentage.
I don't even like getting into the math freaks me out because of the I'm not even gonna, I don't want to put them back on screen, but the getting into like the math gets like J.K. Rowling gets like that's my new, that's a new code word for Nazis, I guess, is the
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling. She's not going to be pleased. This is going to be immediately. Don't buy that game. Don't buy her game.
No one's buying that game. Not our fans.
Buying that game.
No,
it's
not
like
our fans.
#1 pre-sale.
We are too pro-trans for people, our fans, to be. I'm just saying. But yeah, so this was an interesting thing, and I was like, so first off, Mom, not that lady. Yes, we are related to this one. So are most French Canadians. Her and her sister apparently made most of the people and descendants there because they had together like 32 children that survived.
I wonder how much choice she had in that, and agency, and I hope that we
probably not much
as a French Canadian person. I hope that we live up to making it better.
Well, supposedly he was married to his maid for years and made a lot of children that began, and you're like, oh, that was probably not consensual. But again, it was under this like title of like, oh, we're bringing the community, because it was under this supposed uniting of Indigenous and French communities. But it was also suspicious that they had all these published couples of like, here are the original couples from this, like,
I just wonder how many of those Indigenous communities were like aware of fully informed consent of what was.
No way. Well, the other thing that was like, I was like, okay, well, at first I was like, well, maybe, it's like a big thing, like all this, like talking about that. And I was like, maybe it wasn't so, maybe it was like a treaty. Like maybe it was two cultures that were like, wow, maybe we are joining. I was starting to think of like, maybe this could be. And then you see the list of the couples names. All of the men are French. All of the women are Indigenous. And then I was like, there's no consent there. There's no consent there. So that's when I just knew that.
The more you look into Rhode Island history, this is a shift, but it's related to looking into like, oh, what is that? The history of Rhode Island is just piracy.
Yeah.
It's like we're like, well, Roger Williams was gifted a parcel of land from the Indigenous people there, so we're better than the rest of New England. And it's like, no, that's not. There's a lot of piracy. I do have can I tell the story of I'm wondering if I can.
I mean, yeah.
It's a French Canadian friendship. It's my great aunt, my mom's Aunt Shirley, won 2 plots of land in Cumberland or Woonsocket. One of a place in Rhode Island, won plots of land in a dance contest around World War II with a man who wasn't her husband at the time. And her eventual husband, it became a long-running thing in their marriage that he wanted her to sell them, and she's like, no, I won them fair and square. I won it fair and square in a dance contest, and they became a victory garden in World War II. So she's like, not only am I not going to get rid of this, I'm going to make it a community garden.
Wow.
And she kept that the entire length of their marriage, which was like several decades. They are still in the family. We cannot get rid of them because they are now landlocked. People bought property around it. They stayed community gardens because they're too small property really to
build a house or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So now we need more dance related real estate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Dan. I could not agree more. Honestly, like, why isn't this more? How land is divvied up. No, and also like to sell land is also like interesting too, because it's not like that land, like who did that land belong to before?
We were just talking about, whose land?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like when you read these websites of like, when you talk about like preserving like ethnicities and genealogical stuff and like preserving heritage of white people, you are also inherently erasing the cultures and heritage of the people who moved in, because they talk about this land in Nova Scotia. They're like, yeah, and there was no one there, and we settled. I was like, really? Like, Yeah, just like as if there was just a bunch of brides just waiting desperately for white men.
We get a different I'm always fascinated to ask people who went to school in different parts around the country what they learned about New England and like did they learn about King Philip's War? Did they learn about like that kind of stuff? And a lot of times the answer is no. And even locals, it really depends on who you had, not even where you went to school, but which individual history teacher you had. And I had great teachers, all of whom were, I believe, all of my history teachers were also white. So it's like even their presentation of like, hey, I want to like clue you in as the actual history of this area. It's still there. Are we doing? Are we all doing? This is what we're doing pre-show.
Yeah, no, it is all. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Cumberland, and Cumberland has the oldest war memorial in the United States is in Cumberland, which is from the King Philip's War, and it's called Nine Men's Misery, which is, taught to us, especially in Cumberland, because it's in Cumberland, where, you can walk to it and stuff like that. Like, it's taught to us as like, wow, look at this place of like where, these people really fought. And here's this whole horrific story that there was a battle. And then the 9 men that survived the battle were taken to this place in the woods and were slaughtered and then, left out on a rock, scalped and stuff like that, right? So we're taught like this thing, but you're not taught the context of the indigenous people were desperately trying to defend their land and preserve their land. And these white folks were battling them and fighting them. And the indigenous just won that battle. And like, we don't talk about the horrors of what the white people did to the indigenous people. We only talk about the horrors of what the indigenous people did to the white people. And that's the memorial.
And frame it as some kind of a lesson to be learned in fascinating. Isn't it fascinating? Isn't aren't humans we have to talk about like how humans can produce good at some point. We've been very it's almost like we went on hiatus and we had a need to talk to each other and at each other and with a group of people who are our friends and strangers, both live and in perpetuity. And then all of that stuff just saved up and it came out on the internet live.
Just came out on the internet live. But it's been good. It's been good.
I think it's been great. I do, in case my parents watch this, Aunt Shirley was dating that man before she met Uncle Albert. And she, I believe, broke up with him before she got married to Uncle Albert. Uncle Albert was just mad that she had gone with another man. And
does threaten his masculinity.
It was World War II. It was a different time. He wasn't that great of a dancer.
Yeah.
Uncle Albie, he was a farmer. My mom used to ask, he was like kind of a weird old grumpy farmer. My mom asked him, why are the cows laying down? Is it because it's going to rain? He said, no, because they're tired. Tired cows.
Tired cows. Cows get tired.
That's only a joke for farmer communities. I was in 4-H.
No, it's great. Yeah.
Hey, we were going to do a bit about the postal service for Chloe, who's not here. What was it?
Chloe, yeah. Well, Chloe couldn't.
This was my little sorry French Canadian sorry,
and also American Sign Language sorry.
It was this is the American Sign Language, and this was the sorry was French Canadian.
Yeah, I just realized I'm not sure Canadian Sign Language if it's the same.
I don't know. Actually, I know. I think British Sign Language it is. I know. Most of the people that I have worked with that signed use adaptive sign, so it's sort of like a mix of ASL, BSL, and then like the person's personal style.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like when I try to sign out in the wild, I've been caught sometimes of like, that's not what that means. I can see where you're okay. Very rudimentary.
If I don't know, I'll just stick to the hand.
You want to take toilet? That's not what you.
That's toilet.
Right.
Yeah, I try to stick to the hand spelling if I don't know the words, because it's yeah, the words are they change and they change and they get updated too, because as it should be updated. Like the sign for Protestant used to be this, which is just someone kneeling, which is kind of
that's a Catholic. That should be Catholic calisthenics. They call them, right?
Yeah. No, Catholic, there's something with the cross. I forget what it is, but it's something with the cross. And
I can't stand
but I don't know what it's changed through. I feel like I don't mind punching down on Protestants, so I'll sign that one. There's some other. I was actually watching TikTok this morning about the racist sign language, because different ethnicities and signs, they're often based on stereotypes, and a lot of them are getting updated, but not all of them are updated yet.
Somebody has a really great joke on that, and I can't remember what's Childish Gambino's comedy name.
Oh, Donald Glover. Yeah. Oh, he does. We cannot talk about the comedy routine, but you'll see it on the internet. Just find it. I don't think we can say any of those words that.
No. But he says it very well, and made me think about like. Also, people are doing more signing at shows now, which I think is great. I had trouble doing my captions. I'm hoping that Instagram will help me do the auto captions, because I'm trying to do that more, realizing how often I rely on captions. And we have a friend who uses them, and so now I'm like, oh, can we do a Google thing, because it will auto generate captions, and that's helpful for me.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I forget about captions. And that's a good reminder though for everybody, like putting captions on the thing. So it is super helpful.
I can't always get it's this one right here. It went away, but it was it you know, like if you say anal, you gotta type in anal. Like sometimes those caption the auto.
Right. It'll autocorrect to the least naughty word. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And it trips it up. So I'm really eager to see what the Instagram captions do to the ones that we had for today.
Well, you can go in and edit them too. That's another thing important to know for folks who use auto caption. You can go in and edit those auto captions, and so it can make your captions more accurate. Which is also another step too. Like now, don't just caption it, press the auto capture, go in and edit the auto capture if you can, because that's like makes it that much more accessible.
Yeah. But, I think it's fun. I don't know. I think that's a weird. I like doing the tippy typey in the language and getting sucked into it. But
yeah, no, it's great. It used to be a lot harder to caption stuff. It used to be a whole thing of like adding titles to every single clip. So, but it's not as hard anymore. Though iMovie needs to step up and get into auto captioning, because they haven't yet, and that needs to be an update. Anyways, that's another thing. That's but so as we come to our last few moments of this show, gosh, we've talked about a lot of things, haven't we?
We've been all over the place, and I think that's just that's apt. That's what we wanted to do. It was you read a poem. I wrote a poem. Rhyme Zone wrote a poem.
It's gorgeous.
And you beautifully, eloquently read it.
Thank you.
We talked about what it all usually comes back to, which is
right, genealogy. And a tip for your mom, if you are watching, familysearch.org. It is a free site. There is no charge. The only downside of this free site, a lot of resources on it, access to a lot of records. It's really incredible. Only downside, it is run by the Mormons, which isn't inherently the downside, because the Mormons actually have a lot of access to a lot of genealogical records. I don't know how they get that. Sometimes they have access.
I'm going to send this to two of my lovely, wonderful ex-Mormon friends.
No, yeah, please do. Yeah, So now the only thing that I feel like is a pitfall of this site is that, so they have a lot of access to a lot of records. I don't know how the Mormons have all these records. They have them before the city of Providence released some death notices the Mormons had access to. And I was like, how do I get it through this site, but not through the public site? Right? Interesting. anyways, right? And it's a free thing. You just have to have email, whatever. They don't even bug you. There's no email chain. Like it's
that's how you sign up for Donald Trump's trading cards too. You just need an email and a credit card.
Yeah, it's really accessible, and so far it's like been really lining up and stuff like that. So yes, I have heard of that. I've heard of that. I've heard of it too. There was also an island in Canada too that had like such a large deaf community that they had like that everyone just signed and hearing folks and deaf folks. But yeah, so this the only thing with this website is that you can trace your history back, which is really cool because it's collaborative, right? So if someone else, let's say you're related to some French Canadians, and then eventually our French Canadians intermix, which they all do, you know, because you found it, then my tree can connect to it too. So it's like a really cool way.
It's like the chart website from the L Word in the early 2000s. It was the first social media site that I really, really got into because all of the queer.
It's exactly right. Yeah. So it's helpful, right? The only thing is that because of the Mormons' beliefs, everybody, and I mean everybody, when you trace it back long enough, is related to God. So
and where is
I have some proof on the internet that I am related to both Noah and God. Because I was just like, I was so interested because like once I signed in some of my information and started plugging in different things, and I started to like find out the connections of like, oh, here's someone else that did some work on this family tree, and they find this one. I'm like, oh my God, wow, so cool. So eventually I'm just like, what happens if I keep checking like this person's parents and keep going back? And I keep clicking. Well, it's really cool. Like I could trace it all the way up in through Canada, over from France. And I'm like, wow, from France into the Roman Empire. You're like, wow, I can trace this into Cleopatra. And that's why I was like, Cleopatra? Huh? But maybe
that's another one of those ancestry.com we're going to use.
Well, yeah, right. But I was like, at the time, I was like, well, maybe because like humans, like there's only so many bloodlines that actually survived. And you know, if you're, you know, like coming from, if like, you know, like if you're white, you're probably descended from the same kind of people that made white, like, you know, from that. So I was like, okay, so maybe that could be right. And like, you know, and also royal lineage, like their records were well more preserved than poverty. So it makes sense that the only records.
With the Mormons, I wonder if people like pastors, preachers being able to read and write might.
Right. Well, that's the thing. When my line eventually went to like Charlemagne, I was like, okay, it makes some sense because that's the only, you know, again, because royal records and they had, you know, so I was like, okay, makes some sense. Then once it got to Cleopatra, I was like a little suspicious, and I was like, let me just keep going. And then it got to Noah, and then it got to God. Like, come on. So that's what I was doing.
You are God confirmed, God gay God, God queer God, gay God, queer, gay God, queer. I just now stuck in a loop. I just assume that everyone else knows what the chart is, right? Like,
no, I don't know what the chart is, but I just laughed. But anyways.
So you're telling me that you're royalty and God?
Yeah. So, and that's exciting, and so I'll say that's the only downfall of that website is. Eventually, but
is usually ends up going back to racism, colonialism, institutionalized racism, and capitalism, because somewhere along the line somebody's getting money.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, right. And it is. It's like it's interesting. I think I'll say I do recommend this site and these resources, especially also a lot of newspapers have archives online free if you have a library card, so you can access them through library systems, and that can help because then you can find obituaries, you can find just articles. Like I found a little article of my mom being written up of winning a checker game at a park she was in Central Falls when she was a kid, and I was like, this is the cutest thing ever that like Janet Sawyer won the checker.
You give it to her? You can print it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I gave it to her. Oh yeah, everything I find that's like, here's a little thing from it, and she's like, I can't believe this is in the paper. Like they used to just publish everything, and so it's been.
My mom just found her older brother's deceased older brother's high school graduation picture, who is a relative that I didn't get to know very well before he passed. And I really, really like this uncle because he was a huge nerd. Yeah. And so when I play like tabletop role-playing games, it makes me feel like, oh, I'm like Uncle Buzzy.
Yeah.
He was like the things that I know about him is that he did some mysterious accounting for the government of the military of some kind, like had some kind of advanced math degree. And when my mom asked him what he did, he said, I count knives and forks and cabbages for the Navy. That's what I do with my master's degree in math is I count cabbages. So,
Yeah.
Something like that. But then also that he liked horror movies and Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, that's the thing. You could find out some little things. Like I did find out I have a grand aunt. If that's what it is, your grandfather's sister. A grand aunt that was like a very well-known performer in the area. She was like a little child star. In a newspaper quoted as being like the next Shirley Temple. And it was like, so I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Yeah, like
I wonder if she knew my Aunt Shirley, who was such a good dancer that they gave her a plot of land.
Dude, is this the same aunt? I don't know.
Are we related?
We could be, because she also married an Albert at some point. So I don't know. We could be related, probably. But anyways, I'm going to find that out immediately after the show. I'm going to find out some last names from you. But yeah, this sort of thing of like these little bits. And I also found out that like her mother also sang at this theater called the Bijou, which is my clown name.
We did it.
I know, and I had no knowledge of that, but like all these patterns come up, and it's really fun.
When you named your clown, I am going to continue calling it a clown sona. When you named your clown sona Bijou, did you know that? What does Bijou mean?
No, Bijou means jewel. Well, jewels. I use the plural, but it means jewels in French, and it was actually because my mom's grandmother had a dog named Bijou, and it was the only dog my mom's never been afraid of. And that story stuck with me growing up. And so when I needed a clown name, I was like, oh, that's a fun, like Bijou. Like, I had no idea that was also on the other side a grandmother. And it's just like all these things. Like I have so much roots in Rhode Island that I didn't know about. And it's just like, it's so weird. Like I have grandparents from two different sides, didn't know each other, but they lived like streets away from each other. So my parents like getting together for generations. They were like neighbors of different people and just
Rhode Island has always had fewer than the typical 6 degrees of separation. It's like,
yes.
I know that these are not your relatives, but I have to point out that Sean Spicer and General Michael Flynn live in the same town in Rhode Island, across the street from each other.
So
that is a true story, and I wrote sexy fan fiction about it, which at the time felt really fun and like line pushing, and something about that was funny in 2016. It was fun and boundary pushing in 2016. Something after that happened, and I'm not sure what it was.
Oh well. We'll never know. We'll never know. You know, it's been a blur. Okay. Awesome. Well, we've had a great show. Thank you all for letting us sort of info dump at you. Again, one of the autistic systems. If you want to connect with us off air or get on our show, reach out if you know how to contact us. If you don't know how to contact us
again, we should try to do it again.
We should try to do it again. I think we got to change the graphic to live stream Thursdays at 1 because I think this noon time really worked out a lot better for me and baby naps. So
baby naps nap schedules have changed for all 3 of us.
Everybody.
Yeah. LG's been using their CPAP.
Hey, yay!
Oh, Katie, I was just talking about. Okay, we gotta.
I love it. I love it.
That's cool.
I also been doing as a way to get some dopamine is doing Duolingo and relearning French and Spanish right now, and that's been really, really fun. I don't know if anyone has that app, but the app's like it's only positive reinforcements, and it's been really fun to revisit those languages because I used to know them a little bit from school, and to revisit them and to learn as much as I learned basically all through high school in like a week. I was like, damn, this app is way better than high school teachers are.
I used to be conversational in Spanish after like 3 years of college Spanish. None.
Yeah. Gone. I'm going to recommend this app. You're going to be shocked at how fast it comes back. It's on, and every little thing you get right, you get a little ding. And there's no noise for getting it wrong. It's just like, hey, buddy, you forgot this accent. No problem. Let's do it again. And you're like, okay. Like
The Duolingo, I have sometimes problems figuring out joke ones from real screenshots people have because they're so cute. The example sentences. Do you want to carry some heartache through the world with yourself? Don't do that, friend. Here's some bread.
Yeah, they're not exactly like that, but they're close. Yeah, they don't, they're not the most fun.
If you want to do that with us off the air, you should get in contact with us. How?
Yeah. Reach out. Let me know if your mom wants to talk. But thank you all for joining us for this show. This has been so fun. I gotta watch the L Word. Is what I've learned.
Hey, yeah, you know what? It's that time. Buddy. Hey, it was really nice to see you again. I'm gonna take my hat off one more time. Everybody take your hats off. Bye. That was the wrong one.
Yeah. Who's around right now, baby, right now? Do an improv, baby, right now, now. Who's around right now, baby, right now? Do an improv, baby, right now.